Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Pi Chat Live, all about the future of student recruitment events. So my name's Helen, and I'm a reporter at the Pi. I'm really happy to be joined by FPP, a leading global organizer of student recruitment fairs. So we have Giulio Ronchetti, CEO and founder, and Edward Ernsack, marketing director at FPP. So during the pandemic, we really saw a pivot to virtual events, and some people began to question whether we'd ever return to face-to-face events, but also people experienced virtual fatigue and were keen to get that personal interaction back. So today we'll be talking a bit about the pros and cons of both approaches and how virtual and in-person events can complement one another. So before we start, please do say hello in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Let us know where you're tuning in from. There's also a Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen as well. So we'll take audience questions at the end of the discussion. So please do submit anything you'd like to ask our panelists. So let's get started. We'll start with you, Giulio. So can you just tell us a little bit about where the Student Recruitment Fair currently sits in the landscape of international student recruitment? And in particular, can you tell us about FPP's journey into and out of the pandemic in relation to virtual and in-person events?
Well, hi, Helen, and hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you're from today. First, FPP is a strong believer in student fairs. We've been organizing student fairs for 25 years, in person and online. So we think they work. They're a good tool. They're a powerful tool for universities because the fact that when you meet students, you can leave an impression. So you can get leads sometimes from social network, from other sources. You get a name, an email, some information, but that's a little cold. I think the opportunity to have the student in front of you, be it in person or online, just like I'm here now, I'm online, but you get an impression from what I'll be talking today. I think it's a powerful tool in the process of recruiting students. When students need to make a decision to invest their time and their money, I think it's they like to talk to people and have a feel, right? So I think basically it's a powerful tool because of that. You can leave an impression. You can wow your student when it's in front of you. In terms of FPP, the pandemic. Can you ask the question again? The second part of the question.
Yeah, of course. So just a bit about FPP's journey into and out of the pandemic and in relation to your offering, and within that, where virtual and in-person events sit.
Yeah, the pandemic hit everyone, right? Students, universities, and all the companies like our company that were there to help students and universities meet. Before the pandemic, we were organizing kind of 160 events all over the world. And suddenly, we were forced to stop doing that. So if you think of as a company, it's quite a shock. FPP was one of the leaders in organizing student fairs, so it was a big thing. But I think as a company, we were able to pivot very fast because we already had experience on online events. So we had our proprietary platform we developed years before the COVID, when online events were not even a thing. So we started our experience in 2011, 2012. So during COVID, we were able to pivot and start very fast offering more events to help universities and students, even though it was a big mess with countries not allowing, closing their borders. You know, it was a big thing. But we were able to, do quite well. It was very intense for FPP. We organized hundreds of events during COVID. It was a very good learning experience for us. Now we position ourselves as a tech company that specializes in student fair organizations online and in person. We still think online is a great and very powerful tool for universities, and in person as well.
So during the pandemic, you did say at one point that FPP was going to go entirely virtual. Can you just tell us a bit more about what changed your mind? Because now you're obviously offering both options.
Yeah, I did say actually it was my idea. I was so excited about everything that we were seeing, because when we switched to online and we had our own platform, we were able to make adjustments to the platform, and we start seeing the benefits for students and universities. For universities, they were meeting students from not a few cities, but from thousands of cities, because online there's no geographic limitation, and the investment that they were coming out of their budget was much smaller, because that didn't include flights or hotels and things like that. So we understand that we have inflation in the world, prices go up, and the budgets, they don't increase as much as costs. Events are putting up their prices, hotels, all costs involved in traveling. So we thought, hey, this can be an amazing opportunity for universities, and we started faster than any other company because we already had our platform. So we thought that, and we still think that it's an amazing, if of course, an event is as good as the quality of their leads, right? So it's not only because it's online, it's going to be great. The event has to have a good platform, has to be well organized, have to, bring the right students. But the fact is, we are a company, and as a company, we must listen to our clients. We don't exist without universities using our services. And in 2022, we got hundreds of requests for us to go back in person, because our in-person events have always been a little different, because we like technology. And they say, please go back. We loved your in-person events. And I actually attended EAIE last September, and I got people coming to the booth saying, why you don't go in person? And I was trying to be faithful to what I believed. But it comes to a point that, we need to listen. And in-person events are good. They're very impactful. So we decided to go back. That's why I changed my mind, and the company, as a company, we changed our minds.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear there's such demand for both, I guess. So, Edward, over to you. Can you tell us, when you're offering both of those in-person and virtual events, how do you differentiate them from each other? And do they also come at different points in the student journey? How does that work? Oh, you're on mute, Edward.
You're muted.
Sorry, classic error. So kind of going off what Julio said there, really, the two very much coexisting now within our offering to clients. And something, instead of just going back to what we did before, where we had virtual solutions and in-person solutions, post-pandemic, we wanted to kind of take what we learned during that period, especially with online events, and use that to reinvent what we had been doing virtually up until that point. And that's where our new kind of format of virtual events come in, which are called cyber sessions. And at the bottom here, you'll see a link there that goes to the page that explains that in more detail. And cyber sessions really are what we're pitching to the industry as a sort of reinvention of digital recruitment, especially in the event sort of space. So it's a very sort of immersive, almost VR without the headset, but it's VR without the headset kind of. It's very immersive for the student. And it's kind of centered around a series of dedicated 15-minute sessions with each exhibiting university at this event. And of course, I don't want to go into too much detail about how the cyber sessions work, but the point to say that is that we're taking what we've learned from the pandemic, using that to reinvent virtual recruitment events and offering that alongside our return to in-person events and trying to separate them. I think what people during the pandemic were trying to do, a lot of event providers were basically mimicking what an in-person event had done up until that point. But as the studio said, we're very much focused on the tech, and we realize that tech is its own beast, and in-person engagement, although that can be enriched by technology, it's very much a separate thing. And there are different groups of people, different demographics that prefer one or the other, so we need to provide them. So in terms of do they occupy different parts of the student journey, we very much pitch virtual recruitment as at the beginning of a student's journey into higher education, that virtual is very accessible. We can't deny the fact that no matter the location of the student, the background, the means, the ability, a virtual event is extremely accessible, far more so than any in-person event, and that cannot be ignored. So in that sense, we're very much confident in the virtual model, that it's a very democratic way of connecting students with their future education. But at the same time, we understand the benefit of in-person events. And in terms of this, where in the student journey they come, they kind of overlap, depending on a load of factors. There's going to be some students that prefer virtual, some that prefer in-person, and also exhibitors. Budgets come into this question, but I'm sure we might come back to that later. But essentially, that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, great, thanks. So back to you, Julio. Building on what Ed was talking about, is there a sense that these evolving models of recruitment events that you're kind of developing, have they been enriched by almost a two-way cross-fertilization? So is tech enhancing in-person events and vice versa?
Yes, like when we, as Edward was saying, what we were doing when we started developing our online events during the pandemic, we wanted to mimic an in-person event. So we did everything we could, thinking how can we make the same experience, right? So we did quite a lot of improvements to the platform, but still it's never going to be possible, because when you have somebody in front of you, it's something different, right? That can happen. And the other way around, when we decided to come back to in-person, we didn't want to simply come to in-person and say, okay, now we have in-person events. We wanted to bring technology. We wanted to bring something different. We are very proud in this company to use technology to enhance all the events we do, everything we do. For an example, before March 2012, all events in the industry, and I mean any other company would have events where you would come to a fair, bring cards to collect information, or bring a computer. So in 2012, FAP did it different. We launched for the first time ever, the concept of smart events. So we created we streamlined the whole thing from acquiring a student registration to delivering that to the university. Students would have barcodes. We developed our proprietary app, which we'll still use that. It's just being recreated. So to collect leads. So we did this. We like doing things like this. Now with our return, what we did was, okay, we love the fact that online events are sustainable. How can we make our in-person events a bit more sustainable? So, let's talk to IT, brainstorm. And we said, okay, one of the facts that makes it not sustainable at all is the fact that you need to print lots of brochures, right? So we created an app, and now all our exhibitors have a unique QR code that we provide them with, connected to our database, where they have entered their information. So students, when they go to our events, they can download their brochures to their phone, so they don't have to come out of the event with heavy bags full of brochures, because all the brochures are in their are collected, are saved in their phones. And also we at the same time we save a bit of hassle from universities, because sometimes they send lots of boxes. The boxes never make to the hotel, or the expense that is to print brochures, right? So this is one thing. The other thing we brought from our experience in online was we created a matching tool. Online, you can use lots of technology, right? You can be creative as you like, and technology allows a lot of things. So we developed a matchmaking tool. Again, we were the first to do that, and then we thought, how can we bring the matching feature to an in-person event? Because when they go online, they would see very easily how much each student, when they logged in the platform, they can see how much they match with each of the university. We can't do that in an in-person event. So what we did, we came up with an app. So we cross-reference when they register. We inform them how much each of them match with each of the university, and they come to the fair with the app, and they know who we recommend, sort of using the algorithms, to visit. So by doing the matching thing, we optimize the students' time and optimize especially the university's time, because in an in-person fair, sometimes it's full of students. And there are students that have a higher chance to convert, and there are those that would never convert. So this technology will bring to their table more of those students that have a higher chance to convert, so optimizing their time. So we try to bring the right lead for them. And after the event, after an in-person event, we also give them, we are doing this first time, as a bonus. If a student register and didn't match with them 70% or higher, or didn't come to their booth, we will give them that lead. And students have already agreed to that. So these are things that we can use technology. We are playing with AI, we're playing with other things, that we're experimenting things. But again, there's lots of things that we can do.
Okay, great. I'd like to come back to that point about AI, but just before we do, Edward, talking about kind of lead generation and conversions, do you have any statistics around the comparative results between in-person events versus virtual?
Well, the short answer to that, just in the interest of transparency, is no, but there's always a but. So we have to bear in mind that our core role here, and this is what we very much focus on, is to bring leads to universities. And that's primarily what we want to focus on, and that's what we deliver. So it's not in the nature of our business that we have visibility on what happens beyond that point. However, having said that, we are currently working on several case study projects where we want to retouch with some of our very loyal clients, and just kind of see where all the events they've attended with us over the past years have led to, how effective they found them, because of course that's a very valuable tool in exemplifying not just FPP, but also the difference in virtual and in person. Especially now that we've come back to in person, it's more important than ever to be able to present evidence to show which areas are very effective for which institutions, because it's not going to be black and white kind of this is better than that. There's so many variables to consider. So these case study projects, we hope to have some of them completed by the end of this year, and that would be very valuable. We're very happy to share all that, of course, with any of you. But what we can go on so far is, if we look at the feedback we get from students at our events, and bear in mind we have such a vast demographic of students attending our events, especially virtual, because that can impact all different parts of the world, no matter location. We really see a consistent thread of feeling from students that they appreciate the accessibility of the events that we provide, and that, of course, if students are happy, it's going to feed into institutions as well. But like I say, those case study projects will put some substance behind those claims, and they'll be ready by the end of the year.
Okay, great. I'm sure we all look forward to seeing those. Just a reminder to our audience that you can submit questions to our panelists using the Q&A box. So we'll come on to those shortly. So please do send in any questions you have. But for the meantime, Julio, back to you and back to that point around AI. So I'm really interested to hear more about how emerging technologies like AI are being adopted to improve, I guess, both the virtual but also the in-person experience for students and recruiters?
Right. So we are still experimenting, but we've found some interesting use of AI. Of course, AI is can be used to alleviate the workload, right? And one thing that some areas that we are implementing AI is in our app. We have our student-facing brand is called the Student World, and so our students, they don't know us, by the way. They don't know us by FPP. They know, if you ask students, are you coming to the FPP fair? And they're gonna say, what? Which fair is that? They know the Student World. So and we have the app for the Student World. Still, it works like a club. So only students that register to our events have an account. In the future, we are thinking of opening up, but this is a way to make sure the app only has people interested in studying abroad, right? More serious. But anyway, so we are bringing AI to the app to help students what they want answer right away, and universities are busy, right? So on the other side of the student app, there is a browser management area that universities can use. And we are also implementing a way they don't even have to go in there. But anyway, as soon as they come to the app, they have a question. They can see all the events they attend, all the brochures, the information on the university, everything. But they ask a question. They want the answer now. So the university doesn't have the time to do that now. So the Student World is implementing an AI which speaks on behalf of the student world, not on behalf of the university, but is able to answer a lot of questions. And so the AI will tell students that when there is something more specific, to recommend the student to get in touch with the university through the app. So when they do that, the university gets a message and they can reply from their inbox. So this is how it will work very soon. In terms of bringing AI to our events, it's more complicated, but students, if the university opts to have an AI in the app and the student has the AI, has the app and they have to have the app when they go to the fair, and if the university is very busy, maybe they can get started asking the AI some questions until the university is less busy and they can go. We don't know. It won't be possible. We are still experimenting, and we are also launching a new feature for universities with AI, but something to be announced soon.
Okay, that sounds exciting. So Edward, back to you and back to talking about that demand for virtual. When you're putting on these events, do you think the demand is coming more from student preferences for these types of events, or is it more about, as we mentioned before, kind of inflation and the constraints of recruiters and institutions' budgets? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the demand for virtual is very much not a single reason behind it. I think it depends a lot on the circumstances of all the stakeholders involved in virtual events. I mean, it's a mix of both. Definitely students. I think the number one like that students have of online engagement is the accessibility. I know I've said that 3 times so far, but that's because it's true. It really does work in delivering connections and helpful research. And when I say virtual, it's very much not this kind of let's log on to like a Zoom style or like a face-to-face one, like a video call. It's very much about a whole event experience, immersive. Like I mentioned, the new Cyber Session platform is a whole experience. It's not just a meeting online. So with those evolutions in virtual, combined with its accessibility, I think that is a big driver. Students like this, students, not just students, but pretty much all of us that are kind of living in the world. We use technology for everything, whether it's ordering food, taxis, looking for bus times, train times, everything. And this is the norm. And kind of international education is slightly outside of that norm at the moment. And if students adopt it, and we see they're very open to innovation, they're very open to new ideas and ways that help them. And if they use the virtual solutions and they see that it does actually help them in their journey, in their shortlisting, excuse me, then that's a big win also for institutions. Yes, on the institutional front, the economic situation, the global economic situation does play into it. Budgets are being restricted, and of course, virtual is accessible, but also more affordable. And arguably, there's no compromise on the power of the leads that can be gained through online engagement. As Julio said, the main thing is not the format, but how the event is prepared, how it's delivered, the communication that's done before, during, and after an event. And as long as the results are, and that kind of links into the case study project, as long as those results are good for the universities, then virtual offers a really affordable, great return on investment. So it's a mix of both, really. Just before we go on to the next question, I just wanted to add one thing on AI, actually, that kind of sprung to mind, is that it's the AI that we're going to be introducing into the Student World app for students is very much not a chatbot. And I think I can speak for most people. When they use a chatbot online, it can often backfire in the sense that, you waste your time in some ways. Like, yes, it can answer some questions, very basic, but this AI is actually, well, by definition, intelligent. So it really does answer students' questions. So that's an important differentiation that might seem obvious, but it's important.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we've all come across some not so great chatbots, so it's good to hear that. I'm just going to go to this audience question, so perhaps one for you, Julio, about the future virtual in-person. So this says, which offering, virtual or in-person, do you anticipate being the more popular over the next 5 years? You're saying virtual is more accessible. Could it take back over as the more popular offering despite the waning of the pandemic? What do you think?
It's very hard to predict the future. But my opinion is that because it's more affordable, because it has no geographic limitations. To give an example of that, when we do events in person, we go to, like in a country, we go to 4 or 5 different cities. And we had online events for the same country, like Brazil, with over 1,000 students coming from 1,000 different cities. So it's incredible. But I think the in-person is going to be there because it's like a human thing. I imagine that networking events will be there. I don't think networking events will come online. I think they will be there. But student lead acquisition, I think it's just my opinion, okay, is that it's going to be more important in the future for universities because they can recruit more, not from specific cities. They want to brand and recruit from all over the place because there are students that want to go abroad from all over the place, not from specific cities. And I think universities will use part of their budget for in-person, and I think they're going to be using a much larger part of their budget on online events.
Okay, cool. And we've got a comment from Edward there as well about an uptick in interest in solutions from the US. Okay, great. And just quickly, we're almost out of time, but I also wanted to ask you, Julio, briefly about whether you would plan to incorporate peer-to-peer in your cyber events, as obviously we know alumni are so important as student ambassadors, particularly at recruitment fairs.
Yeah, we are bringing ambassadors to our app, and this is something we hear from students that they would appreciate having talking to other students in the fair. So it's something that we're thinking of implementing and creating an event that would. Universities could be there, but they would only invite their alumni or their current students, especially on events like where they have to be awake in the middle of the night, right? Or like Australians attending Latin American events or Americans attending Indian events. So we are bringing ambassadors to the app, and we are bringing, we like to play with things. We test, works, great. It doesn't work, okay, fine. Then we try something else. But we see lots of potential on this, and we're going to allow with this new feature, allow universities to have their ambassadors in our app as well.
Okay, great. That sounds really exciting. Well, that is all we've got time for, I'm afraid. But thank you so much. This has been really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these things continue to evolve. Thank you, everyone in the audience who joined us. It's great to see people tuning in from all over the world. If you want to find out more about FPP, there's a green button at the bottom of your screen. So if you just press that, that will take you to some more information. But that's all for now. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at our next Pie Chat.
Thanks a lot, Helen. Thanks, everyone.